What if I told you that one of the most powerful moments of this year didn't come from a performance? Not from a speech, not from a music video, not even from a stage filled with fireworks and screaming crowds. It came from a silhouette, a single shadow standing in the light. And somehow, that was enough to make millions of people around the world completely lose their breath. Because when it comes to Jimin, even silence feels overwhelming. This week, fans experienced something that perfectly explains why Jimin continues to exist in a category completely his own. On May 10th, while the world was still buzzing from the explosive atmosphere of the BTS World Tour Arirang concerts in Mexico City, Jimin quietly uploaded behind-the-scenes photos from the tour's VCR filming to Instagram. And the internet instantly froze. Not because the photos were loud, but because they were the exact opposite. Minimal, monochrome, elegant, almost hauntingly beautiful. The first thing fans noticed was the lighting, a glowing white backdrop, dark shadows cutting across the frame, and Jimin standing there with blonde hair shining softly under the light like he wasn't even real. There was no exaggerated pose, no dramatic expression, and somehow, that made it even more dangerous. Wearing black slacks and a sleeveless see-through shirt that subtly revealed his toned upper body, Jimin looked less like an idol in a photo shoot and more like a character from an emotional art film. Every angle felt intentional, every shadow looked poetic, but the image that truly destroyed fans emotionally was the silhouette shot, just his outline. That's it. No visible details, no close-up expression, no direct eye contact. And yet, the moment people saw it, social media exploded with reactions like, "My heart fluttered instantly. How can a silhouette be this beautiful? This feels unreal." And honestly, they weren't exaggerating. Because there's something about Jimin that has always gone beyond visuals. He has this strange ability to create emotion before he even speaks. Even standing still, he radiates vulnerability and intensity at the exact same time. It's almost impossible to explain unless you've experienced it yourself. One second he feels soft and delicate, and the next second, there's this overwhelming charisma that completely takes over the room. That contrast is what makes him unforgettable. Fans especially couldn't stop talking about another angled shot focusing only on his upper body and profile. The lighting emphasized his facial structure so perfectly that people compared him to a sculpture. Sharp jawline, soft eyes, elegant posture. It wasn't just attractive, it felt artistic. And maybe that's why fans reacted so emotionally to these photos. Because after years of watching Jimin grow, perform, struggle, succeed, and transform himself over and over again, moments like this feel personal. They don't just see an idol anymore. They see someone who has poured every piece of himself into becoming an artist. Someone who carries beauty and pressure at the same time. Someone who somehow remains graceful while living under a level of global attention that would crush most people. And what makes this story even more emotional is the timing. Because while fans were still completely overwhelmed by these photos, another piece of news appeared that reminded everyone just how massive Jimin's impact truly is. His solo song, Who, officially surpassed 2.4 billion streams on Spotify. 2.4 billion. And the number alone doesn't even fully explain how unbelievable this achievement really is. Because Who didn't rely on collaborations with huge international artists. No famous Western feature, no massive constant promotions, no endless media push. It was simply Jimin's voice, Jimin's emotion, Jimin's artistry, and somehow that became powerful enough to conquer the entire world. The song reached this milestone only 659 days after release. That means for nearly 2 straight years, people across the globe have continued pressing play on the same song over and over again. Not because they were told to, but because they connected to it emotionally. That's the difference. Hits can be manufactured, virality can be temporary, but emotional attachment, that lasts. And Who became exactly that kind of song. The kind people listen to late at night when they can't sleep. The kind they replay during heartbreak. During loneliness. During moments when they need comfort but can't explain why. Because there's something deeply human in the way Jimin sings. He never sounds emotionally distant. Even in polished studio recordings, his voice feels fragile sometimes. Almost trembling with honesty. And people feel that. That's why Who continues doing something almost impossible in today's music industry. It refuses to disappear. The song has remained on Spotify's daily top songs chart for 659 consecutive days. Think about how insane that is. Most songs peak quickly and fade within weeks. Even massive global hits eventually slow down. But Jimin's song keeps surviving every trend, every new release, every changing algorithm. Month after month, season after season, still there, still loved, still growing. And now who has climbed to number 37 on Spotify's global most streamed songs of all time ranking. Not just among K-pop songs, among all songs. That's historic, especially because it's now officially the highest charting non-collaboration K-pop solo song in Spotify history. And somehow, the story becomes even more emotional when you realize what this says about Jimin himself. Because for years, people praised his dancing, his visuals, his stage presence. But now, the numbers prove something deeper. People stay for him, for his artistry, for his voice, for the emotional world he creates. And maybe that's why these recent silhouette photos hit fans so hard emotionally, because they perfectly symbolize where Jimin is right now in his career. He doesn't need to scream for attention anymore. He doesn't need to overdo anything. Even his shadow carries presence. Even silence becomes memorable. That kind of aura can't be taught. It comes from years of sacrifice, years of pressure, years of learning how to transform pain, love, loneliness, and vulnerability into art that millions of strangers somehow understand instantly. And maybe that's what makes Jimin feel so different from other stars. He never feels unreachable. Despite the fame, despite the records, despite the billions of streams, there's still something heartbreakingly human about him. You can see it in the way he smiles, in the way he looks at fans, in the softness hidden behind his performances. And perhaps that's exactly why people love him so deeply. Not because he feels perfect, but because he feels real. Right now, BTS are creating unforgettable memories with fans during the Arirang concerts in Mexico City, turning entire stadiums into oceans of light and emotion. But somehow, in the middle of all the noise, all the cheering, all the massive success, one quiet silhouette became the moment everyone couldn't stop thinking about. And honestly, that says everything about Jimin. Because some artists become famous through attention. But Jimin? He became unforgettable through emotion. A single photo can shake millions. A single song can survive for years. A single silhouette can make hearts race worldwide. And at this point, it genuinely feels like we are witnessing an artist entering a completely untouchable era. An era where every movement becomes iconic, every emotion becomes art, every moment becomes history. So now the question isn't whether Jimin is influential. The real question is, how much further can he go, when he's already capable of moving the entire world without even showing his face?